Hey Cherokee Trail, we are back with a new chapter, chapter 18 of Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. And after we finish this, when you come back to school, look what we have. It's the second book, Momentous Events in the Life of a Cactus. So this will follow Avon as she goes on in the story. And it looks pretty fun, pretty good. I think. So, very excited to get this brand new. Just started cataloging. So perfect for next year. So keep that on your reading list. Or, the public libraries are open now for pickup of books. You can put them on hold, request them, and then they'll email you, the Douglas County Library, and then you can just drive up curbside and pick it up. So if you prefer a book instead of an ebook, that is now available too at your local library. So starting to open up. For those of you who are listening to this before next week, we are doing that drop-off pickup in the carpool lanes starting Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday. It's A through J, I believe, on Monday, and then K through Z on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is just people who couldn't make it at their assigned times. And I will be there, and we will be pulling out of your trunk the library books that you checked out before spring break. There are no fines. There's no problem with that, but we have sent out notices to you today just to remind you of all the book titles that you might have out, so you can look for those, get them in a pile, put them in a bag to put in your trunk so that we can, I'm going to be there picking them up, waving to see all your faces that I haven't seen in so long. That way we'll have them, get them all cleaned up and quarantined during the summer so they are ready to be back on the shelves for all of us in the fall. Okay, so if you have any questions or if you think that you left your books in your classroom, just shoot me or your teacher an email and we will look for it in the classroom. Okay, so chapter 18. By late fall, the weather was finally starting to cool down to a comfortable temperature. I had read every single tarantula book from the Desert Ridge Middle School Library, the Phoenix Library, and the box we'd found in the storage shed. I now know terrifying things about tarantulas, like that a type of wasp called a tarantula hawk would sting and paralyze a tarantula, then lay its egg on it and seal the tarantula up in a burrow. Once the wasp's grub hatched, it would feed on the tarantula meat. Ugh! I couldn't wait to use that information to shock someone. I even blogged about it. I had written several more posts on my blog, mostly stuff about the park, school, tarantulas, and how I do things without arms. Pretty random stuff. So I called my blog Avon's Random Thoughts. Anyway, it wasn't about anything terribly exciting, but I had gained a few more followers. Zion now commented pretty regularly on my post, and Emily still made her usual LOL and I miss you remarks from time to time, though I hadn't seen any comments from my other friends in Kansas for at least a week. Dad and I practiced soccer in the arena together early on weekday mornings when it was cool outside. It was wonderful to feel a chill in the air again, but every weekend I felt less and less enthusiastic about getting out of bed to go out there. I think Dad must have noticed my waning interest. He found an old tuba somewhere at the park. He came into my room one morning, played horrible screeching sounds on the tuba, then announced, "All hail Avon Laura Green, for future queen of the Desert Ridge Middle School soccer team." I smothered my face with a pillow and told him there was no such thing as a queen in soccer. The next weekend he played the tuba and announced, "All hail Avon Laura Green, future emperor of the Desert Ridge Middle School soccer team." And the weekend after that, "All hail Avon Laura Green, future world dictator of the Desert Ridge Middle School soccer team." Dad said the snakes would be hibernating now, so after we practiced soccer, I would hike up the hill behind Stagecoach Pass. I liked being able to look down on the park and the rest of the city, and I liked visiting my giant saguaro. I spent most of the time on the hill looking for tarantulas and collecting quartz rocks. I had quite the collection going at home. I wore a loose, open bag around my neck so I could easily drop the rocks in with my toes. Most of the kids at school were now ignoring me completely. I guess they were used to seeing me around by now, so I wasn't getting any more shocked looks. It was more like I just didn't exist. I sat next to my giant saguaro while looking down at poor old Billy and Fred, endlessly hauling kids around the dirt trail. I thought it might be time for them to retire to the petting zoo. I wondered if we could replace them with a little train like one I had seen in a mall. Now that the weather was cooling down, business had picked up a bit, but my parents told me it was barely enough to keep the park running and cover all the repairs that were building up. I stood up and walked around to the backside of the hill, hoping to find some new rocks. A strand of something dark caught my eye. I slipped my foot out of my flat, grabbed it with my toes, and tried to pick it up. It was connected to something in the ground and wouldn't come loose. I put my flat back on and started kicking at the dirt, trying to unearth whatever was under there. Eventually, I loosened enough dirt to get the strand free. I laid it on the ground and studied it. It was caked with dirt, but I could tell it had once been a necklace with a polished turquoise stone set into dark metal. I lifted it with my toes and slipped it into my bag. I rushed home to call Connor and tell him what I'd found. After all, we'd seen that necklace before. Clue to the mystery. Oh my goodness, I wonder what's going to happen. So even sounds like a lot of us, sometimes we start like an activity like soccer or knitting or, whatever it might be. And we do it for a while, could even do it for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden we're just like, oh man, I just don't have the passion for this anymore. I don't even think I like it. So her dad's bringing in the tuba and trying to get her to get excited again about soccer. And it sounds like she's pretty good at it. But I know sometimes we just need to take a little break. And then after we've done that, we're sort of like, oh yeah, I miss doing that. And we're sort of rejuvenated. We want to do it, keep going. So then we come back to whatever it might be. So that might be even. However, she's also got these new little interests. And can you believe that stuff about the tarantula? Wah! And then that whatever wasp thing? Woo. Okay, that was a little bit too much information. But if you want to look more up, you can go on the databases like World Book Online. And I know it's got some stuff on there about tarantulas. Okay, chapter 19. Connor, Zion, and I sat outside on the lawn together before school, waiting for the first bell to ring. Connor studied the necklace while Zion flipped gently through the fragile sketchbook. Every now and then a brittle piece of paper would flake off and we'd all gasp. Zion finally found the page that had the sketch of the necklace. That's definitely it, he said. Connor held the necklace up. The metal is nearly black, and in the sketch it's light gray. My mom told me that it's because it's tarnished silver, I said. Look at the shape of the stone and that little vein running through it. It's definitely the same. But why was it up on the hill? Connor asked, then barked. I shrugged. I have no idea. Zion looked from me to Connor and back again, his eyes huge with alarm. What? I asked him. He covered his mouth and shook his head like he was thinking. Whatever he was thinking was too terrible to say. What? I said again. Dead body, Zion whispered. Connor and I looked at each other. I don't know, I said. What other explanation could there be, said Zion. Someone murdered this necklace-wearing person and buried her body up on the hill. Why else would it be up there? Connor looked at me wide-eyed. Rodeo clown mafia, he said, and snickered. I shook my head at him and trying to remain serious. I spend a lot of time up on that hill, and I've never seen any sign of a grave or anything. It could have happened a long time ago, Zion said. Maybe bushes and cactuses and stuff had grown over it. I've heard if a dead body makes good fertilizer. Connor and I laughed. That's so gross, I said. Where could you have possibly heard that? Zion scratched his chin. I think I read it in a comic book. Oh, then it's definitely true, I said. Zion tore a handful of grass out of the ground and threw it at me. I shook my hair out. I guess there could be a dead body up there, but you'd think I'd feel all creepy when I was up there if there was. Like I'd feel a chill or a shudder or a... I thought for a moment. Or a tremble. Connor smiled and barked. Then, almost immediately, we heard another bark from a nearby crowd. Connor's face dropped. I turned and glared at the group of kids standing near us. Several of them were covering their smiles with their hands as they snuck glances at us. I turned back to Connor. You shouldn't put up with that. Connor's shoulders slumped. What am I supposed to do about it? Normally, I would never want to call attention to myself, but there are times when my temper overwhelms my desire to go unnoticed. I stood up and shouted at the group, Whoever's doing that, it's not nice. You should be ashamed of yourself. I sat back down on the ground with a huff, and Connor and Zion looked shocked at my behavior. There, I said, that's what you should do. That's right. Remember, if you see something, say something. I know. It is hard, though, right? Connor didn't want to make a fuss about all of that, like people, like laughing at him behind his back, or making fun of him. But you know how we talk about it at school, what makes epic behavior? Yeah, it's doing the right thing, right? Having integrity, even when no one's watching. And, of course, obviously people were watching now, but she did the right thing. Even though Connor couldn't do it for himself, she stood up for him. So, I think that's like one of the true measures of a friend. Avon's definitely a great friend. So they've got this mystery, and it turns out that necklace that she found was in those drawings of that book, but that book is like really old. So how has that necklace been up there for so long? And maybe it was like buried, and now it's just the dirt's been washed away through the years, and that's why Avon found it. And of course, Zion. He's a little nervous kind of guy, right? And that happens to all of us. We get a little anxious about things, and he's a little nervous. And he's a little worried there might be like a body up there too. Whew. So that being said, Avon being who she is, what do you think she might want to go do? Yeah, she might want to go see if there is a body. I don't know. Gosh, let's read the next chapter. Chapter 20. Connor and I ate lunch with Zion behind the office most days now. Connor still hardly ate anything, but he took a bite from time to time. Sometimes he'd spit his food, but he always tried to aim at the brick wall. Every now and then, though, Zion and I would have to do some serious ninja blocks when a pretzel or grape flew at our heads. I sat with the boys on the sidewalk by the office as Zion said, I think I might audition for The Wizard of Oz. He blushed so hard I could see the red coloring his brown cheeks. Oh, yeah? What part? I asked him. He shrugged. I don't know. I thought for a moment. You would make a good lion. He frowned. Because I'm so fat? No, because you need to find your courage. I nudged him with my foot. I'm only half serious. He smiled. Have you guys ever done anything like that? What, audition for a play? Connor asked. Yeah. Connor looked at Zion like he was crazy. Yeah, right, he said. I frowned at Connor. You'd probably be a good actor, I said. The only part I could ever play, Connor said to me, would be the part of an annoying, yappy dog. I didn't know what else to say about that, so I told them, my school back in Kansas held this playwright contest in 6th grade. Anyone could submit their own ideas, plot, and script for a play. The winner got to have their play produced. I submitted the most awesome script of all time. Wait for it, I said dramatically. Down and Dirty in Kansas City. Zion snorted and a little of his juice box came out of his nose. He wiped it away. What was that about? I cleared my throat. Down and Dirty in Kansas City is the story of a completely awesome ninja named Harold who lives in Kansas City and fights criminals with the help of his trusty pig named Gerald. So Harold and Gerald are this crime-fighting duo who stop a gang of criminals from robbing a bank. They also fell in love. Not with each other. With a beautiful vixen lady and a lady pig. The play ends in a double wedding for Harold and Gerald and their partners. Connor giggled and Zion choked on a little more juice box. The climax of the play, I continued, was supposed to be when Harold and Gerald finally face off with the main villain. I tossed my hair back. Played by me. And the exciting battle to the death ends, and Harold and Gerald ripping my arms off and blood splattering everywhere while I dropped dead to the floor. I had thought we could borrow those fake arms again from Emily's mom. Did you win? Zion asked. I totally didn't win. Plus, we had to have a meeting with my parents. They had read my play already and thought it rocked, so they were a little confused about the whole thing. I tuned out most of the meeting, but I believe the words gruesome and horrifying may have been said. Anyway, this kid named Luke won the contest. His place was called Desert Moon Over the Desert. I found the title redundant, but I guess the judges thought his work was spectacularly creative. What can you expect from the same people who thought Down and Dirty in Kansas City was a stinker? Really, Connor agreed. What was his play about? Desert Moon Over the Desert was about a moon, seriously, that looks down over the desert, I'm not kidding, and falls in love with a coyote, I'm totally serious, and the coyote falls in love with the moon. Of course, the moon and the coyote can never be together, so the coyote howls and eventually befriends a cactus and everything turns out all right. Were you in it? Zion asked. Yeah, I played the cactus. My costume was this drab green, so I wasn't bright enough on stage. We had to spray the whole thing down with a sparkly spray paint. We had this giant paper moon on the stage with lights behind it, so I was all sparkly and shiny from the light of the moon. It was pretty cool. I loved being up on stage, but I had the most ridiculous lines. I still remember them. I recited my lines just as I had done in the play. Coyote, the moon is many miles away, but I am here on earth with you. Coyote, my new friend, don't prick yourself on my needles when you give me a friendly hug. Coyote, if you were ever thirsting to death, I would give my life that you may drink my treasured cactus juice. Zion giggled. That's awful. I'm sure you'll have way better lines than the Wizard of Oz, I said. Gosh, I hope so. No, really, you'll love it. When the play ended and everyone clapped and cheered for us, I felt like I could do anything. I even thought maybe I could have a career as an actress. Why couldn't you? Connor asked. I gaped at the boys. How many limbless movie stars do you know? Neither one of them said anything. I shook my head and looked at Connor. By the way, Mom said I could come home with you after school and she picked me up before dinner. Really? His face brightened. I thought you weren't allowed to go to anyone's house where they didn't know the parents. My mom said it's okay since she knows you, and your mom works so much and sleeps in the evening. I guess my mom can't really get a good chance to meet her with all that's going on. She's going to be home after school, right? Connor shrugged and barked. Yeah, she'll be home sleeping. She worked a 12-hour shift last night. Has she ever thought about trying to get shifts during the day? I asked. She has to take what she can get right now, Connor said, and this job pays well. He looked at Zion. You want to come over too? Zion shook his head. Dentist appointment, he grimaced. And the next support group meeting is coming up, I told Connor. Support group meeting? Zion asked. Connor grinned. Don't you mean social event, Avon? I glared at Connor while I spoke to Zion. It's just a little group that meets at the hospital every month. Sorry, Zion, Connor said. For freaks only. Hey, I cried. No one there's a freak, especially not you. Connor blinked his eyes, shrugged, and barked. If you say so, Avon. I let out a loud breath. Anyway, my mom's already planning on taking us. Connor raised his eyebrows. Such peer pressure. I guess I have to go in that case. Yes, you do. Okay. What do you think? I sort of like this friendship that's developed. Like, it seems like, they're like super comfortable with each other. And I think that's how it is when you meet people and new friends, people who are maybe different from friends you've had in the past. And, sort of at first, because you don't really know each other that well, you sort of see the differences at first. And then all of a sudden, you've just become so comfortable with each other, and you can joke around and just goof. And you sort of like the differences sort of like fade away. Like you don't even notice it, right? And I think that's how this is with this friendship that's developing between the three of them. I mean, it doesn't mean that, all the tough stuff goes away, and doesn't mean that they still don't have to sometimes do hard stuff. But I think it's just easier when you have this group that is just knows you, and they're not thinking that, they're not noticing the externals, the things that can make us different. They're just seeing each other, as the people they are, as their personalities. And I think that's one of the great things about really strong long-term friendships, is you just know someone so well that you don't even, like, you're not really seeing like just the external. You're seeing them as who they are inside, on the inside. Anyway, I think that's why we all like or want to make friendships. And every year when we have a new classroom, sometimes there's just someone that you've never even, maybe you've seen them in the hallway, but you've never been in class with them. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, like we are like two peas in a pod. Have you ever heard that? Or you just fit, you just work, you just like feel like you've sort of always known each other, and you like each other's jokes, just sort of hang out. Sometimes it's because you're like totally different. Like, how many of us have a friend that's like really different than us, but we're like really tight? Yeah, sometimes people who are really different than us will also bring out the best in us. I don't know. Anyway, so they're talking about this. Oh my gosh. So what did you think about that play that boy that won? The coyote and the moon is so far away, and he falls in love with them. And then, when she said, I totally didn't win, when she submitted it, and they had to have a meeting with their parents. They had read my play already and thought it rocked, so they were a little confused about the whole thing. And I think she means her parents. So it turned out most of the meeting, I believe, were gruesome and horrifying, because she had those arms being ripped off and blood splattering everywhere while she dropped dead to the floor. Well, obviously a way more interesting way to explain the fact that she has no arms than just, hey, I was born that way. Anyway, it makes for a good story, but I guess it didn't make for a good play. Okay, so it looks like Avon is going to Connor's for the first time. Zion can't go because he's got to go to the dentist. And I wonder if there's going to be some more in the next chapter about this mystery and finding some clues. So we are going to stop there. We are up to chapter 21. We are going to finish this before the end of the school year. Now, next week again, we're picking up books. Put them in your trunk. Bring them Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday whenever you're assigned. I'll be there. I can't wait to see your faces and say hey. But I'll keep posting these online. It'll be posted either on the YouTube channel or on the I've also been attaching to the Facebook page and to the library activity pages. But for 3rd through 6th grade, we did have our last hangout today for library, because next week I will be at school, so we won't be able to do the hangouts. And can you hardly believe we are coming up to the end of the school year? Also, don't forget, if you have not signed up for Mrs. Whittingham's virtual field day, that sounds like a fabulous time. In fact, I think it's probably one of the few I could actually win. So you guys sign up for it and participate. It'll be a lot of fun. We will talk to you soon. So if I keep looking for the post, I hope you're enjoying the reading as much as I am, and we will see you next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.